Hi, I'm Dirk van Zyl. I'm the winemaker at Saxenburg Wine Estate, and I want to take this opportunity to share a little bit more about the 2020 vintage and what in my mind makes it such a memorable vintage. So firstly, it was my first vintage at Saxenburg Wine Estate, and therefore it will always be a very, very special vintage. It also meant that I had to get to know the vineyards quite well in a relatively short amount of time, which meant a lot of walking up and down each of the vineyards to really get to know all the different spots and be able to pick these little spots separately. So just to give you an idea about what effort it takes to get to know your vineyards, in February, in the middle of harvest, I walked more than 280 kilometers. So that's more than 10 kilometers a day, just up and down in the vineyards and up and down in the winery. Secondly, I think 2020 worldwide will be remembered for COVID-19 and the effects of COVID-19. Fortunately for us, we were already done harvesting by the time that the national lockdown set in, but it did necessitate me to move in on the farm, and I had two of my cellar guys live on the property as well. And that enabled us to finish pressing, to make sure all our tanks were full, everything was racked, and make sure that we don't lose any of our 2020 crop. Then, lastly, I think 2020 will be known for phenomenal quality. And what makes a great vintage? Just the climatic conditions. We really were blessed with some wonderful conditions in December and January especially. Those months were much cooler than general. We didn't have the heat spikes that we tend to get in those months. And this combined with cooler night temperatures really was phenomenal for the quality. We saw slower ripening, more even ripening than in the past, and some brilliant acids and wonderful color development on our red wines. So vintage for us started on the 22nd of January with Sauvignon Blanc. Our second picking was only on the 27th of January. So that just gives you an idea of how slow the vintage was to start off with. And that really continued for the first few weeks of February as well. It really gave us plenty of time to plan and pick the blocks at exactly the right time when we were quite satisfied with the taste and the quality of the grapes. So for the whites, we generally pick them quite early in the morning to bring them into the winery while they are still cool. And this year, because we had lovely acidities this year, I could really play around with a lot of skin contact before pressing in the winery. So a lot of the Sauvignon Blanc, we gave skin contact. On lower acid years, you don't want to do too much skin contact because you do extract a bit of potassium from the skins, which then binds with your acids and lowers your acidity. But in high acids here, like 2020, you can play around with skin contact, and it really adds a different dimension, it adds a bit of texture and adds a bit of extra flavor to the final wine, which is fantastic. So at Saxenburg, our whites focus on Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay and Chenin Blanc, and I must say all three of these cultivars are showing beautifully at this early stage. There's lovely fruit intensity, lovely fruit purity, beautiful acidities, and already lovely texture coming through. So I'm really excited about them. For the reds, we started more or less in the middle of February with some Pinotage, and that was followed by some early Cabernet Sauvignon. Then the reds also progressed quite slowly in the beginning for the first 2 weeks of picking reds. So we really had ample time to plan our pickings properly. But towards the end of February, this started to change. So February was quite hot and very, very dry. So the vineyard started to show the effects of this later in February. And then on the 25th of February, we had a massive heat spike. So it went up to over 40 degrees Celsius. And after that, all of the vineyards you could see were ready to be picked. So it really necessitated us in the winery to do good planning and plan our tanks carefully to get all of the grapes in at the right times and pick the right blocks at the right moments. Overall, I'm very happy with how it all came in. I'm really, really excited about the quality that's showing so early on. On the reds, I think there's, as with the whites, beautiful fruit purity. There's lovely tannin structure, beautiful density, which is always important in red wines. But I think what will set the 2020 vintage apart is the elegance. There's really a phenomenal elegance to the wines, and an elegance you will only find in only the best vintages. So hopefully, in not too long from now, I can start sharing these 2020 wines with all of the Saxenburg fans, and I really look forward to doing that. Thank you.